is currently after midnight. I have to get up at 6 and I am brewing myself a decaf pot of coffee. Hashtag working full-time yet still a writer life. Actually, I'm gonna correct that, a procrastinating writer. Some writers are smart and plan their time much better. But you know what? I finish. Eventually. I have altered my scene so many times that I am having to go around and copy paste things just so they make sense because I'm changing things back. Oh my gosh. But at least I saved it. Always save all your versions because you never know if you want to change your mind back. Coffee's done. Alright, I finished. It is almost 2 a.m. I'm going to hate myself tomorrow. But then again, I finished rewriting chapter 1 officially, so maybe I won't. Making progress, doing the thing. I have to go to bed. Good night. Hello guys, it is Monday. I am working from home today and I decided to give myself a view of the outside world since I normally work underground and I don't get much sunlight, so now I'm like enjoying the view of buildings. It's not bad. And I also have my online class tonight and we are going to be discussing my work. So I'll let you know how that goes. I figure what I'll do, I'll sign out this week's vlog. I don't know if this is interesting to you, just thinking out loud. Tomorrow night after I've gone through, sorry there's construction, after I've gone through both of my classes workshops, so after I get a full feedback on my full chapter 1, which I think that's it. I think chapter 1 will officially be done once I get everyone's feedback and then I can really move forward. I've just been thinking about my future a lot lately. Hopefully that's not too loud. Thinking about like what I want to do, where I want to live, how I envision my life looking, how I envision my lifestyle. Like for me, Zach and I were talking, after our lease is up at the end of next year, we'll have been here for 3 years, which is the longest I have lived in one place since high school. I have been on the move. I've lived in Rochester, New York, where I went for my undergrad. I lived in England for a semester when I did a study abroad. I've moved back to Maine every summer except for when I was working after I graduated. And then I lived in Boston and now I'm in Quincy. Like I've been around. And what the result has been, like as much as I've loved exploring the world and seeing the world, I've been in the Northeast, as much as I've loved though seeing different ways of living, like living in a city versus living in the middle of nowhere versus living in like a suburb, I've come to this place where like nothing feels like home anymore, which is kind of sad. Like I don't know, it's just me and whoever I'm with, and like obviously I feel at home with Zach and I feel at home in this apartment, but it's not like, I don't feel like this is my community. I don't, because it's like I know I'm not gonna live here next year or we might move. And that's like a weird feeling and it is kind of isolating. And then just thinking long term about where we even want to live in the long term, like after we get married and like if we're gonna have kids, like do we want to be in Massachusetts? Do we want to move into Maine? Do we want to go somewhere completely different like California out to the West Coast? I don't know, like nothing feels right and it's kind of sad. I don't know what the full point of that vent was, except to say it's got me thinking, like I said, about the future more and what I am looking for in life. And I realized how badly, truly badly, I want this. And you know, I obviously want to be a writer and an author and have my book published, and that's the whole point of this channel. Like, I've wanted it since I picked up the camera and before then, but like lately it just feels like it's time. Like, that's kind of how I felt when I picked up the camera back in 2016, almost 2 years ago now. But it really feels like time now. Like, it really, like, this is it. Like, I feel that, like, now or never feeling. I recently saw on Twitter that, let me look up her name because I want to give her credit. Katie Rose Poole. She is 26, so she's my age, and she wrote it, I think, when she was 24. She just got signed for a trilogy with Matt Kidd Books, but it was a 7-figure book deal. And it sounds really amazing, so definitely go follow her on Twitter. Her name's Katie Rose Poole. I'll put her links and stuff in the description below. But wow, talk about inspiration. She's my age and she did it. Like, wow. You know, there's so many unknowns to my future as far as what I want, like where I want to live, how many kids I want, what I want life to look like, where I want to travel. Like, I don't know any of that. Like, I don't know. But this, writing this book, doing this career, I know this is what I want. And so I guess I just feel very inspired lately to do it. And even though it's super ambitious and crazy and doesn't give me much time, I still plan on having my final draft ready at the end of the year. Like, I've said that a few times, but I'm ready. Like, I want to start this. I want to start, like, I just watched Kim Chance's long video about writing her sequel for Keeper, and it's so inspiring to just see someone living the life that I want. And even though it's a struggle, like, I know, like, I know how hard it is, but I want it. I want it more than anything. And I'm really glad that I've been filming these videos so I can hopefully one day look back and watch my journey on how I got there, because that's where I want to be and that's what I want to do. So I just want to share that. I have to get back to work now, and I have class tonight, and so I have about an hour and a half before class starts, and I still have some critiques to do for our workshop for another student, colleague, co-student, whatever you call it, classmate, that's the word. And then we'll be critiquing my work. I have mixed feelings about it, because what I handed in to this class tonight is the second half of my chapter, and I'm not 100% actually I'm not 100% confident in the first half either, because I changed some things and I did some things that were risky, and I kind of just like put it out there to see, is this confusing or does it work? Because I obviously understand it, I wrote it, so I need to know if it makes sense to the reader. But I think I need to do this. I need to take risks, and I need to put my work out there, and I need to move this forward. And you guys are going to be seeing a lot more writing montages, especially in next week's author tube, because that's what I'm going to be focusing on, is really critiquing. Because I found I actually really, now that I really know what I want to do with my story and the direction I want it to go, and like I feel confident with my characters, editing is kind of fun. It's like, oh, let's make this better, let's do this. And it was definitely harder in the beginning, like to look at it all big picture, and like it's very overwhelming, because it's like, oh my god, I have to edit an entire book, like what? But once you get in the swing of it, I enjoy it. So let's do this. Eek. Okay. I also just realized I totally forgot to share with you guys kind of a major breakthrough I had in my writing life this past couple weeks. Two things. One was that, so since I now work from home Mondays because of my class Monday afternoons, in order to get that day switched, I had to speak with my supervisor about taking classes. And naturally she asked, oh, what classes are you taking? And that is something I have been trying so hard to avoid, kind of that mix of my day life and my writing life. Just, I guess it's like an insecurity thing, you know, you almost feel like a fraud, or at least this is how I feel when I tell people, oh, I'm a writer, and they're like, oh my god, you are? Like, what do you write? And I feel like a fake. I don't know why. I think because I'm still getting used to being a writer and saying I'm a writer. I guess I don't, it comes with an insecurity to put yourself out there like that and to feel like you don't want to give people the wrong impression of you. But that kind of goes back to being proud of yourself, and like, it's not the wrong impression. I am a writer, I am writing, I'm taking writing classes, I'm establishing or trying to establish my platform in this field. So that was one thing I did. I had to tell my boss about my side thing, how I write books, and she asked like what kind of books, and we got into that discussion, and she was really supportive and really fantastic. So it wasn't like I had a bad experience, but it was really nerve-wracking to put myself out there and to reveal that side of myself in my day life. It's not something I tell people that I just randomly meet, which I feel like I should, though. Not randomly, but just get better at saying, like, you know, not just saying what my day job is, but also saying what I do on the side, because I am excited about it, I am proud of it. And the second thing I did, which was kind of nerve-wracking as well, was that for my classes, my email I used to correspond with my classmates, I started using my one link to this account. So because of that, you can find my YouTube channel, and you can, in my signature it says like that I'm a writer and a vlogger, and it has a link to my channel. So if you ever like email me, that's the email I'll respond to you guys on, which no one's ever really emailed me, so, but anyway. And so that means that my classmates that I'm taking these classes with can find me, or can find this channel. And that's kind of scary too, because it, like I said, it's like intermixing these different components of my life and just putting myself fully out there. But I think for me, that mental connecting and stitching of these different components is so important, because that's what's going to make it more real for me. You know, hiding this part of my life, hiding this channel, hiding this hobby or this dream, it gives me an excuse, or it gives me an out if I don't follow through, I guess. Like, no one in my day life or work life knows what I'm doing, so if I don't finish a book and never become a writer, no one thinks anything else of it. But I don't want that. Like, I want this to be just as much, like, I want this to be in every part of my life. And so this semester too, or this fall or whatever, I'm trying to stitch all of these parts of my life together to create the life that I really want. So like I said, I've been thinking a lot about the future and like just the life I want to live, and you know, this is how I want to be defined first and foremost. So I'm taking the actions, I guess, to make that happen, which is terrifying. Also, I just got an email from another classmate that they want the first few pages, or the first 16 pages of my book, and that's just like the best feeling. She was so nice what she said. She said, I'm really fascinated by your work and I enjoyed reading the pages you sent last Friday very much. I'd love to read the first 16 pages as well, for context and for better understanding. So some of it is just, you know, for context and stuff, but she didn't have to say how much she liked it. So it's the best feeling. Okay, gotta go. Just want to share. I finished this puzzle last night too. I did it all one night. Gosh, I'm so smart. But it's a Nancy Drew puzzle. Isn't this cool? I got it at the Nancy Drew convention, I believe. I don't think this was a Christmas gift. And it's some of the books. I realized one of my favorite things to do while listening to audiobooks is doing a puzzle, because it's just that perfect amount of keeping my hands busy, but I don't need to overthink and I can pay attention really well to the audiobook. So that was fun, and I had a really bad backache after because I am too old to sit on the floor. Just kidding, I'm just out of shape. I just got done with my second class about middle grade young adult writing, and it was my critique day, and so all 15 people went around and critiqued my work, and they all said that it was the best writing that they have. I'm just kidding, no, that's not what they said. I was gonna like go on, but I just couldn't even get that far. Wow. I thought writing it was draining. Listening to people give feedback about your writing, and we're not allowed to talk, by the way. So for basically like 45 minutes, I sat there and heard people giving extensive feedback about what I'd written. Wow, I feel so drained. And I was saying to Zach, because it's like every single point they would make, I would be like thinking in my head like, okay, good point, maybe I'll change it like this, or like, no, I don't want to do it that way, but this is why. But I took notes on everything everyone said so that I could have time to digest it. But it's just so like my mind was constantly jumping around all over the place, thinking if it would work, thinking if it couldn't work. And it was fantastic because like the feedback was fantastic because so many people brought up things that A, I was worrying about, or B, had never thought of, which are both fantastic. Like, you know, for me, it's so helpful to even hear somebody validate a concern that I've had, because, you know, when you're editing yourself, you're like, is this a problem? Is this not a problem? Am I spending all this time trying to fix a problem that a reader would actually be 100% okay with? Or should I be worried about it? And so there were a couple of things I was worried about, and they pretty much everyone confirmed, like, okay, yes, I didn't like this part, I did like this part. As you can imagine, with 15 people, basically beta readers, that's what they are, they were beta readers, 15 of them, I don't think anyone fully agreed. Like, there wasn't one thing everyone fully agreed on, but there was definitely some things that jumped out as repeated themes, and I'm going to take note of that. So I had said earlier that my chapter 1 was basically done and I was excited to move forward. That turns out that's a lie. Because I am going to be really rehauling some of the scenes. One thing someone mentioned that really stood out in my mind was that it felt too static. So for basically half the chapter, now I see it, like it was something I never really noticed before or realized. Half the chapter are all the characters, well, not all the characters, but the characters sitting in a room talking to each other. Which, yes, that has been done before, but usually that is the chapter that's way down the road if they do it. You know, I can think of an example like in Harry Potter when Hagrid is explaining his tale of where he was when he was in the Giants. If you haven't read Harry Potter, this is really confusing. But that whole chapter is them just sitting around the table and he's explaining something, even though the explaining is action-packed. But that chapter wouldn't work if it was the first chapter. You know, nobody cares enough about these characters to care what they're saying. Like, they want to see the action, especially in the beginning, especially with young adult. With adult, maybe it's a little different, but with young adult, you know, these are kids, they got stuff to do. So that was good to hear. I needed that pointed out to me, and he offered a great alternative, and I won't say it, but just because I want to play with it, but it was just like, I'll say it. He basically said that instead of having them all sitting talking, bring the inciting incident, I remember the word, up further before I planned on it happening, and have them moving and talking. So like basically be on the run while talking to each other and unfolding all this information. He said, like, because one way you really get to know a character is through the choices they make, and if they're just having a conversation, there's not much room for choices, where it's action that forces a character to make a choice, whatever that choice is. And that was just such a great point. It was something I had never thought of it like that, and now it seems really obvious that it's pointed out. It's like, oh duh, of course that was way too static of a chapter, like especially the beginning. Like, I needed to move it along. So I'm gonna have to do that. And so I feel, now that I've like taken the overwhelmed aspect of it out, because it was very overwhelming, I feel like amazing. Like, I always feel this way after my classes. I always feel like exhausted but fantastic. I imagine it's like after a good workout, you know, you feel like tired, but you're like, yes, like I worked my body. Well, it's like I feel like I'm exhausted, but yes, I've worked my creative mind. So that is what I want to say about that. And another thing I wanted to mention was how in my last class, someone was talking about how how they write, like what time of day they write. And I have been tending to write at night because usually like an assignment is due at midnight or something, and so I'm like up working on it. You guys have seen, like, I'm doing it and then I go to bed really late and I'm exhausted. But he says he's tried that, and even though he's not like a crazy morning person, he has become that because he's found that writing in the morning versus writing at night you're kind of unfolding from all the day's thoughts, and you've had a full day, and like now you're quieting down and taking it in, which I think can work for a certain type of writing. Like if you're writing a certain scene where you're exhausted after a busy day, maybe that is a good time to write. But in the morning, you haven't had your day yet. You can wake up and immediately go into your story, and that's the only thought that's occupying your mind. Like you can get into the world that much faster. And yes, you're still tired, but if you need to lower your inhibitions, and that's why you like night writing, then that's still going to apply to morning writing. So that's my way of saying I think tomorrow. If I say it on video now, I have to do it, so I'm like nervous to say it. I think tomorrow I'm gonna try morning writing. Then again, if I fail, I can just edit this clip out and then you guys won't even know that I said this. But so I think what I'm gonna do, I'm gonna hate myself. I'm gonna set my alarm for 5 a.m. Kill me now. 5 a.m. and write for like an hour and just see how it goes. It's gonna be hard and it's gonna be an adjustment, but I got used to waking up at 6, so why not 5? Oh, I think it will help. So that is that plan. All right, I am going to go. I have dinner to eat and I have some editing to finish up for the other person's critique tomorrow. So tomorrow's class in person, I am also going through critique. So I will have 2 days in a row gone through an extensive critique. I don't want to rework the first part of my chapter since that's what's being critiqued tomorrow, but I will rework the second part in the morning so that flows better. Okay, I'm gonna go. My battery light is flashing at me. I will check in with you guys tomorrow morning, bright and early. And I'm going to look very tired. Hi. I had these in, I realized I never turned anything on. I wasn't listening to anything. I do that all the time, like on the train. When I'm coming home from work, I put my headphones in, but I'm very rarely actually listening to something unless it's an audiobook. Alright, it is 6:11 a.m. Rain is pouring outside, which is at a perfect ambiance. And I kind of just started free writing. I didn't really have a set plan. I was up tossing and turning for so long last night, just thinking over all my notes and realizing like all the issues that my story had at that point, which were kind of big issues. Not like plot issues, but almost, I guess, character believability, point of view issues, which is things that I've known I've had. I wasn't coming up with a solution last night. And it was really frustrating and I couldn't turn my brain off, so I think I probably fell asleep after like an hour and a half or so. And then the alarm went off this morning and I actually got up though. My face was blue. I was worried that because it was so early I was gonna have trouble getting up, but I think I was so focused and determined to do this that it actually wasn't too hard. And I just decided to just talk to my characters this morning and kind of do it like interview style, which I think is how I'm actually going to tell a lot of the story now because I really enjoy it. And I will leave that at that. I know that's very mysterious and you're like, how's that gonna work? But don't worry guys, I have a plan. So yeah, I spent this morning talking to one of my characters and I liked it. And now I think this might be how the story opens. Because why not draft chapter 1 20 times? Honestly, it feels like that's what I'm on. I'm probably on version 6. I guess that's revising. This gets easier, right? With my next book, it'll be easier, right? Alright, I better get ready for work. Overall, though, I loved this. I loved waking up early. It's so true. Your mind is so much more sharp, or at least mine was, even though I'm kind of tired, but because I haven't had a full day of stuff and things, it was like so much easier to turn my mind off and focus on my story because it's first thing in the morning. It's the only thing I've done today. I think I'm gonna try it again tomorrow, even though I have class tonight, so I might get home late, but I really liked it and I feel like good about it. I was starting to feel a little bad after yesterday. Like I said, the critiques were amazing. I have literally 3 full pages of notes of just comments people were making, and now I'm getting in all of my critique letters from everybody with even more detailed notes. But I was feeling like it's just a lot to hear for 45 minutes, everything wrong with your story, everything wrong with like this thing that I've poured my heart and soul into. And I admit I was feeling a little down and a little discouraged. And one of the things I said to Zach before I went to bed, I was like, will you please just tell me I'm a good writer? Because I was feeling so down. But you know, now I'm feeling better. I just had to get it over with, and hopefully they like what I turn out next. I think our next workshop, I don't know if we're supposed to hand in like new chapters or if we're supposed to hand in our revised chapters, how it's supposed to work, because we're supposed to hand in like 40 pages in the end. I don't know how that works, because I kind of just want to hand in this again and be like, okay, is this better? Do you like this? And I think it's gonna go so much better. I was trying so hard to just like do it in a cool way that I forgot it has to still be enjoyable and readable for a first time reader, because they're not gonna know all the thoughts in my head. So, because a lot of the questions and critiques my classmates were asking me was questions that I knew was gonna be answered later in the story. So at first I was like, oh, well, just be patient and we'll come. But it's like, you don't want your reader to be so frustrated with not understanding something. Like, they're not going to keep reading to understand it. They're just going to stop reading. And you don't want that. So I have to take that input in, marinate on it, and realize if the majority of my readers are having this issue and feeling this way, I need to change my game. All right. That is it. I have to finish getting ready for work. My hair is actually, maybe I'll be able to style it a little bit before I go into work since I'm up so early. I really liked this. I could see this becoming a thing. It was so fun to wake up before everyone else woke up. And now it's finally getting light again. Just barely. See you guys for my last check-in. Next clip. Gonna end this vlog today. So, okay. Oh, and I forgot to add, one of the things that I really liked about writing this morning was that it was similar to night writing in that, you know, I was kind of tired, so my inhibitions were lowered. It wasn't like I was at the peak of brain activity, but as I was writing, I was waking up more. I wasn't like falling asleep, so I feel like my writing just got stronger and I was able to really stay clear and focused instead of just like falling asleep at the keyboard. So, a huge plus. Oh, Lord. Guys, it's humid. You're just gonna have to get used to my shiny face. Ooh, high def, not good. Let's not be so quite so crystal clear. I cannot talk. Oh my gosh. Quick recap. Just got done with class number 2 for the week. And this one went so much better. Sorry if I'm not high energy. I woke up at 5 a.m. But so I presented the first part of chapter 1, which has been reworked many times, and everybody seemed to really love it. People were really excited about it. They wanted to know what happened next. There was some confusion, some things people kind of, so with this workshop we go around and we just reflect how the stories that we're workshopping that week made us feel and kind of theorize what we think is going to happen next, or just kind of talk about how we interpreted it. It's less of like a, I didn't like this line or this line, I think you should change this to that. It's more of a reactionary workshop. So it's like I said, it's very much kind of the same idea as beta readers, which is super duper helpful, especially with revising, because you want to know like what part's confusing, what part are people mixing up, what part do people start to get bored, what part really excited people. And so there was like one part of the story that a lot of people misinterpreted a relationship, so it's like, oh, I have to fix that right away. And then there was some people thought that each scene was very linear, so it just always moved forward in time, when in reality it kind of jumped through time, so I have to clarify that. But overall, people enjoyed it, so that made me feel so much better after yesterday, where the second half of my chapter clearly does not have quite that same level of grabbing, and I want it to be, it doesn't have to be quite so grabby, because you know, it's the second half of the chapter, like I lured them in, like now I can tell the story, but I don't want it to slow down so much that they stop. Good feedback that way. That was really awesome. There were some parts where people read aloud a line they really liked from my story, and that was so cool. It's like, oh my god, someone's quoting me. And the prologue, most people loved it. Some people said it was unnecessary, depending on where I took the story. So that was interesting, because that's something I've really struggled with myself as well. I've read that out loud to you guys, and since I read it out loud to you, I think I have changed some things. Like, I've written that thing so many times, like at least like 7 times, which might not sound like a lot for people who revise a lot. Anyway, so now I'm like a little confused, but I'm gonna let everything marinate, just because some of the solutions I had for my feedback from yesterday involved changing some things in the beginning part of the chapter, but people really seem to like the way this chapter began, and so it's like, how much do I really want to change? I don't know, guys. I really don't know. It kind of like stinks, because my main problem is my story has multiple protagonists as it stands right now. There is no one protagonist. I definitely have people who are highlighted more than others. I would say Anna, Jess, Paul, you don't know who these people are. They are the ones that really are at the forefront, maybe even Ben. But the whole idea of my story was I didn't want to pick one person, because it's the story of all of them. And so I'm struggling with who to open with, because everyone, I guess as they read the story, they might understand more that it's not just about that first character, but right now everyone seems to think that the character that they first read is the main character. And it's like, it's kind of just the first character. So like my first group from yesterday that read the second half of the chapter, sorry, I know this is confusing, because like my second half of the chapter was critiqued before my first half. They thought that it was a story about Jess and Paul, the younger boys who were on this adventure to find the crystal skulls, basically. Whereas today's group thought it was a story of Anna, who is one of the guardians of the skulls. And I guess I don't know the answer to that. And I want it to be a story about all of them. Like, I don't want it to be just one. And I've seen that done successfully in a few books. Game of Thrones is a great example. Each character is just as much a story of them as it is the others. The Stand by Stephen King, once again, bunch of characters, just as much about one as the other. So I think what I'm gonna do, maybe this is even what I do in the morning, I'm not sure, or what I'm gonna do, but I'm gonna look at those books and see how they handle that, and how maybe you just have to let your readers start to figure it out as they read further and realize there are more than one character. Maybe that's what I'll do. I don't know. So The Stand, one of the ways it really distinguishes that is that each character starts at the same point. So let's say it's Friday, September 1st. Each character point of view, they start on that same day. And then once they all kind of like start to tie in, then it moves linearly. It might be like not Like maybe one is Saturday, one Sunday, but it's still like the same period. Whereas Game of Thrones, I think, is all linear. So like one character's point of view ends at a certain point, the next character picks up at that same point, but just now we're in their point of view. And so I guess I need to decide which way tells the story better for me. Right now, as it stands, I have it more Game of Thrones where it's linear, but maybe to establish that there is not one main protagonist and that it's just as much everyone's story, is to do it starting just from one day, kind of like The Stand. I don't know. What do you guys think? What would be less confusing for you? One person did mention in my workshop that multi-point of view can work. It can work really well, but it's rare, and that it can easily be confusing, and I understand why now. But I just feel like no matter, like I've thought about for my story just picking one. Like let's say just pick Jess and just let him be the one, the eyes of the story, even if it's not in first person, but just following her perspective like in Harry Potter. But no matter which way I look at it, it doesn't feel right. It doesn't feel like the way to tell the story. It doesn't seem to do the story justice, and it just doesn't go with what the theme of the story and the message I'm trying to convey is. So I won't be doing that. I guess I just want to make the way I am doing it better and less confusing, because if half of my readers don't understand and like are confused about who the protagonist is and don't understand that it's going to be multiple, then I have a problem and I need to figure that out. So yeah, maybe I will like even just break up the first chapter so that it kind of jumps to more than one character's POV. Maybe even all of them. Oh, but that's a lot. I don't know. I'll marinate on it. That's gonna be tomorrow morning's thing. So I'm gonna wake up early again tomorrow, which is gonna really suck because I think I'm gonna be up late tonight finishing The Hate U Give, because the audiobook, I only have 4 hours left on the loan and 2 hours left to listen, and that wait list is so long, so I just want to finish it tonight, which means I'll probably finish it like a little after 11. Oof, and then getting up at 5, that's gonna suck. But that's alright. I want to get it done, so that means I'm gonna leave you guys. So, book I'm reading this week. Oh my gosh, so I've shown you guys in the last vlog, one of the books I'm reading is Writing Without Teachers by Peter Elbow. I have to say, I've read a lot of books about writing, especially the last year or two, both assigned from class and on my own. And I've mentioned 1,000 times, On Writing by Stephen King is like top recommendation for me. I love that book. I've read it more than once. It is my go-to for inspiration when I just want to get back into the writing after I haven't done it for a while. This one is the first one I've read that I just feel like, no. I mean, it started off on a bad foot because he had a typo on the back page in a sentence about editing, but just, oh my god, like the guy's writing style and the way he discusses writing, I just don't agree with. And if you watched my writing advice video, you know that, hey, I am all about finding out what works for you, and I think it's fine to have, like, to voice how you write because someone else might relate, but he is speaking as if this is what everyone should be doing, and it's like, I think it might be good practice for somebody who has a lot of trouble getting that first draft out and maybe has a lot of writer's block. But I mean like severe writer's block, because oh my gosh, he basically, to sum up, I've read over half the book now, to sum up his theory about writing, you should write, free write, so not think at all about what you're writing, just go for it, don't worry about it all. And then for your second draft, do this, read through your first one and then like do it again, but with your first one already in mind. And just like basically like do like, I'm exaggerating here, but like 50 drafts, and eventually that final product might be good. But he even mentions it might be garbage, and that's okay because you now are a better writer. And it's like, but did you learn something? Did you really? I get it. practice makes you better. That is the best teacher, no doubt. But there are other things too that you should do. Oh my gosh. Oh my gosh. And so it's with this book's mentality that we are having the workshop style that we are for my on-campus class, which is very much reactionary and not critiquey, not editing tips, because this book is all saying like that should not be what you talk about, like it should all be like how you made the story made you feel and all this stuff, which is great, valid. But at the end of the day, sometimes suggestions are good. Like if someone has a great idea, like for my last class, how I mentioned yesterday, someone had a perfect idea that I'm 100% going to use because it's like genius. I think you should be allowed to say it and voice that. But he's like, no, you don't want to be fixing the other person's story. I don't know. So I think this book is something to be taken with a grain of salt. I am learning some things from it, but at the same time I'm reading it and I'm like, oh, not 100% on page. And also his writing, oh man, the man repeats himself. Like I would read a whole chapter of this book and be like, he could have said this in one paragraph. And that's coming from me, the rambling queen. So that should give you an idea. Overall, not loving this book as much as other writing tip books, but hey, maybe it can help someone out there. Goodreads, there's a lot of 5-star, so yeah. But I don't think I'll be getting a 5-star from me. Plus it's very dated, so maybe he thinks differently now that he is more prolific. I can't say that word right now. Prolific. There's an F in there somewhere, isn't there? Wow, I am tired. But I can't blame it all at that. I am bad with pronouncing things. I can see it in my head. Prolific? Oh, geez. You guys probably think I'm an idiot. Prolific. Anyway. Oh, and one of the first things he mentions in the book is that he's only ever written one book. And he was writing a book about writing. And I was just like, bold? I don't know. I'm gonna end it there. Zach,
yeah?
How do you say that word that's like when you're really good or like fluid at something, like you're prolific?
Prolific.
Prolific?
Yeah. Like my reading is
Prolific. Prolific.
Why?
I can't say it.
Oh, you're filming. I didn't realize your hand was there.
Well, I know, I was hiding. I didn't want you to know. Because is proficient? Prolific though? That's the
You're trying to do proficient and prolific together.
Ah, that's where I went wrong. Prolific and proficient.
Yeah.
Okay, I think I was trying to say proficient. Thank you. You were a great help.
Prolific is better than
Proficient is like you're good at it, you're acceptable. And prolific is like you're amazing.
You proficient is like above average, whereas I feel prolific is.
You heard it from him first, folks. He is a thesaurus king. Dictionary. Oh, you can see how messy our apartment is. Let's just go like this. Oh. Very nice. Thank you. I really could not say that word. Okay. I can also say irony about how I talked about a book that rambles after filming for 15 minutes. Okay, I will see you guys in my next video.